A sharp, biting cold wrenches me back to consciousness, its icy grip clawing at my senses. I pry my eyelids open, only to be met with the whirling fury of the blizzard. Snowflakes, like a swarm of frozen ash, dance chaotically in the beam of a streetlight, barely piercing the oppressive gloom. I'm sprawled on the cold, twisted floor of the overturned bus, its metal skeleton groaning under the weight of the snow. Every inch of my body screams in protest as I attempt to rise, my muscles stiff and uncooperative. I'm soaked to the bone, my clothes torn and caked with a mixture of snow and blood. My mind is a jumbled mess, haunted by fragmented images of the Wendigo's last assault, a tapestry of terror woven in the deepest recesses of my psyche. Shakily, I stagger out into the relentless storm. The world outside is a nightmarish blur of white and gray. Snowdrifts rise like ghostly apparitions, morphing the once familiar streets into an alien landscape. The wind howls with the fury of 1,000 lost souls, its icy breath stinging my exposed skin. A few yards away, Sarah's voice cuts through the howl of the blizzard. Her form is a mere shadow against the onslaught of white, a fragile figure battling against the storm's wrath. Our eyes meet, sharing a silent vow of defiance against the night's horrors. Together, we trudge through the snow-choked streets, the town now an unrecognizable maze of destruction. Buildings, their facades torn and shattered, loom like tombstones marking the death of normalcy. The skeletal remains of what were once homes and shops are shrouded in snow, their interiors exposed and desolate. The storm plays tricks on my mind. The swirling snow contorts into eerie shapes, faces twisted in agony, reaching out with ethereal hands. I blink furiously, trying to dispel these haunting visions, but they persist, each more terrifying than the last. Sarah grips my hand tighter, her touch a lifeline anchoring me to reality, yet her eyes are wide with terror, a mirror of my own dread. Our progress is agonizingly slow, hindered by the deepening snow and our own mounting fear. The Wendigo's presence is an ever-present threat, its roars a demonic chorus accompanying the storm's howl. We take shelter behind a crumbled wall, our breaths shallow, as the creature's massive, shadowy form passes ominously close. In a fleeting moment, our worst nightmare unfolds. Sarah's hand slips from mine as the Wendigo lunges from the blizzard's veil, its claws sinking into her with a brutal efficiency that defies nature. Her scream pierces the night, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror, only to be silenced abruptly as the creature drags her into the white abyss. I lurch forward in a futile attempt to save her, but the Wendigo and Sarah disappear into the storm, leaving me alone with my despair. Her absence is a gaping wound in my soul, a reminder of the fragility of our existence against such an unfathomable horror. Driven by grief and a stubborn will to survive, I push through the blizzard, each step a testament to our shared struggle for life. The silent town is a mausoleum of memories, each corner a testament to the carnage unleashed by the Wendigo. After what seems like an eternity, the cabin materializes through the snow, a haven amidst the chaos. I reach its door, my body on the brink of collapse, and stumble inside. The cabin's interior is uninviting and cold, a far cry from the warm refuge it once was. I slide down against the door, the weight of the night's horrors pressing down on me like a physical force. As the cabin door closes behind me with a resounding thud, a profound silence envelops the room, contrasting with the howling chaos outside. For a moment, I'm rooted to the spot, my ragged breaths misting in the cold air. The transition from the blizzard's fury to this sepulchral calm is disorienting. The cabin, once a haven of warmth and security, now feels like a crypt, its walls imprisoning me with the haunting echoes of the Wendigo's howls. I spring into action, more out of instinct than hope. Dragging furniture, a heavy oak chair, an old dining table with peeling varnish, I barricade the door, creating a makeshift fortress. My efforts feel like a child's play against a nightmare, but the need to do something, anything, is overwhelming. The cabin windows, framed with frost, diffuse the meager light into haunting patterns across the floor. I move cautiously, feeling the oppressive weight of the cabin's silence, each creak of the wooden floorboards sounding like thunder in the stillness. Haunted by the memories of Sarah's tragic fate, the town, my friends, and the relentless pursuit of the Wendigo, my mind is a hole of fear and sorrow. The blizzard rages on, its ceaseless roar a grim soundtrack to my thoughts. The cabin has become my solitary refuge in a world transformed into an endless white void, a place where nightmares roam free. As darkness deepens, the cabin's corners seem to come alive, shifting and twisting in the dim light. My imagination, fueled by fear, conjures up sinister shapes in every shadow. The howling wind, the groaning timbers of the cabin, each sound is a potential warning of the Wendigo's return. In a desperate attempt for some semblance of control, I search the cabin and discover an old, half-melted candle and a tattered notebook with frayed edges. Lighting the candle, its glow provides a small circle of warmth in the cold room. The notebook, its pages yellowed, seems to beckon me, urging me to record the horrors I have endured. Pen in hand, I begin to write. Each word is a struggle, dredging up memories I would rather forget. The act of writing is both a release and a torment, forcing me to relive the terror, the losses, the unimaginable scenes I have witnessed. My writing is suddenly interrupted by a series of heavy thuds against the cabin wall. My heart leaps to my throat in terror. The sounds are deliberate, spaced out, the unmistakable presence of the Wendigo. It's playing a macabre game, toying with its prey, me. I grip the notebook tighter, casting fearful glances at the frosted windows, half expecting to see the Wendigo's monstrous face peering through the glass. But there is only the relentless storm, the snowflakes caught in a frenzied dance by the wind. The night stretches into an eternity of writing, pausing, and listening. The Wendigo's roars and the sounds of its massive body pacing around the cabin create a symphony of dread that accompanies my every word. After what feels like hours, the notebook is full. My story. From the eerie calm before the storm to the loss of Sarah and the terror of the Wendigo, captured in hastily scrawled ink. I lean back, drained, as the candle sputters, its light struggling against the encroaching darkness. In the fading glow, the cabin seems to shrink, the walls inching closer, as if constricting around me. The outside world is lost to the blizzard, a maelstrom of snow and wind that obscures everything in its icy embrace. As the last flicker of candlelight dies, darkness swallows the cabin whole. I sit huddled in the blackness, the notebook clutched to my chest, waiting. Waiting for the dawn to break, for the Wendigo to return, for an end to this relentless nightmare. The darkness in the cabin is absolute, a suffocating blanket that amplifies every sound into a potential threat. I sit motionless, my ears straining to pick up any noise over the howling wind. The silence within is unnerving, a stark contrast to the chaos that rages outside the walls of this fragile sanctuary. My fingers brush over the rough texture of the notebook's cover, the story within its pages a testament to the night's horrors. The act of writing, while draining, had brought a strange sense of order to the chaos of my thoughts. But now, with the candle extinguished, I'm left alone with my memories and fears, enveloped in darkness. Time becomes an elusive concept. Minutes stretch into hours, marked only by the occasional groan of the cabin as it withstands the blizzard's assault. The storm outside rages with unabated fury, the winds howling a constant reminder of the Wendigo's lurking presence. Despite its absence, the creature's terror still grips me, its shadow hanging over the cabin like an ominous specter. At times, I fancy I can hear faint whispers, the remnants of the Wendigo's haunting calls, but I dismiss them as tricks of my mind, echoes of my fear and isolation. The isolation weighs heavily on me, each creak and rustle within the cabin setting my nerves on edge. Without warning, the quiet is shattered by a sharp, resounding crack from outside, followed by the sound of something heavy dragging through the snow. My heart races, and I freeze, every muscle tensed. The noises are irregular, unsettling. They circle the cabin, sometimes fading away, only to return with greater intensity. In the oppressive blackness, my imagination conjures vivid, horrifying images. I envision the Wendigo's form prowling just beyond the walls, its breath fogging the frosty windows as it searches for a way in. The thought, a thin line between reality and hallucination blurring in my heightened state of terror. With a start, I realize that the dragging sound has ceased. The sudden silence is even more terrifying, a pregnant pause that fills the cabin with an anticipatory dread. I hold my breath, listening intently, but there's nothing. Only the wind's mournful song. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours, in this tense vigil. My eyes, useless in the dark, strain to pierce the blackness, to catch a glimpse of whatever lurks outside. But there's only the impenetrable veil of night, a barrier that cloaks both the storm and the horrors it conceals. Eventually, exhaustion overtakes me, my body and mind succumbing to the relentless strain. I slump against the wall, my grip on the notebook loosening. In this uneasy rest, my thoughts drift between wakefulness and a fitful, uneasy sleep, haunted by nightmares that mirror the grim reality of my situation. As the night wears on, the storm's fury seems to lessen, the wind's howling gradually softening to a mournful whisper. Yet, the respite brings little comfort. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now feels like a prison, holding me captive with my own fear and despair. I'm jolted awake by the sensation of cold air brushing against my face. Disoriented, I realize that dawn must be approaching, the first light of morning seeping through the cracks in the walls. The realization brings a mix of relief and apprehension. The end of the night's terror is in sight, but with it comes the uncertainty of what daylight will reveal. As the first light of dawn pierces the horizon, its rays tentatively illuminate the snow-covered landscape, revealing the remnants of a night marred by unfathomable terror. The storm has passed, leaving a deceptive calm in its wake. I stand at the threshold of the cabin, the door ajar, my gaze fixed on the desolation that stretches before me. The once picturesque town is now a tableau of ruin and despair, its buildings and streets blanketed in a thick layer of snow, under which lies the evidence of the Wendigo's rampage. My footsteps are hollow against the snow as I step outside, each crunch a stark reminder of the night's horrors. The silence is overwhelming. The air is piercingly cold, biting at my exposed skin, but it's the weight of what I've witnessed that chills me to the bone. Memories flash through my mind in a chaotic torrent. The howls of the Wendigo, the screams of its victims, Sarah's terrified eyes in her final moments. Each recollection is a sharp stab of pain, a reminder of my helplessness against the relentless predator. Lost in my reverie, I barely register the sound of approaching vehicles until they are upon me. They swarm the area, a flurry of activity amidst the stillness. Officers, their faces etched with a mix of concern and suspicion, fan out, securing the scene with a practiced efficiency. I'm approached by a pair of officers, their expressions unreadable behind their winter gear. "Sir, are you all right?" one asks, his voice laced with a professional concern that doesn't quite reach his eyes. I try to respond, but my words are a jumbled mess, a tangle of fear and confusion. They exchange a glance and gently, but firmly, guide me to their vehicle. The cold metal of the handcuffs feels surreal against my skin as they clasp around my wrists. I hear them speaking, their words blending into the morning air. Sole survivor. Needs questioning. Potential shock and trauma. The drive to the station is a blur, the outside world passing in a disjointed montage. I'm led inside, the station's sterile environment a stark contrast to the wild chaos of the past night. They guide me to an interrogation room, a sterile box that feels more like a cage. An officer, his badge gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, begins the questioning. "What happened out there?" he asks, his tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. I try to explain, to convey the terror of the Wendigo, the supernatural nightmare that unfolded, but the words fall flat, unbelievable even to my own ears. The questions keep coming, relentless and probing. Where were you when the attacks happened? Did you see any of the perpetrators? Why were you found alone in the cabin? Each inquiry feels like an accusation, a subtle insinuation that I hold some responsibility for the night's events. Hours, maybe days, pass in a haze of interrogation and isolation. Time loses meaning in the confines of my cell. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker intermittently, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I'm left alone with my thoughts, a solitary figure in a small, cold cell. The reality of my situation begins to sink in. I am the sole survivor, the only witness to the Wendigo's wail, yet here I am, treated as a suspect, a pariah. Sleep non-existent, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and despair. The horrors of the night replay over and over, a relentless loop of fear and loss. I see Sarah's face in the darkness, hear her voice calling out to me, only to be swallowed by the Wendigo's growl. The creature haunts my waking moments, its monstrous form a constant presence in the periphery of my vision. How can I reconcile the existence of such a creature with the world I once knew? How do I come to terms with the loss, the devastation, the sheer impossibility of it all? And then, in the stillness, a sound shatters the silence, a faint scratching, barely perceptible coming from the walls of my cell. I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. The scratching grows louder, more insistent, as if something is clawing its way through the concrete. My breath catches in my throat. The sound is eerily familiar, a ghostly echo of the Wendigo's claws on the cabin walls. Panic rises within me, a tidal wave of fear crashing over the fragile barriers of my sanity. I press myself against the far wall of the cell, my eyes wide with terror. As I sit huddled in the corner of my cell, the relentless scratching on the walls continues, each scrape a chilling reminder of the horrors I've endured. The sound is unnerving, a constant presence that seems to claw not just at the concrete but at the very edges of my sanity. I wrap my arms around my knees, trying to shut out the noise, but it's unyielding, persistent. The cell feels smaller with each passing moment, a confining space that seems to echo back my fears and doubts. The world beyond these walls is a blur, a blend of memories and nightmares that I can't distinguish between anymore. The Wendigo's haunting visage is etched permanently in my mind, its ghastly form a specter that looms in every shadow, every dark corner of my cell. And then, amidst the incessant scratching, a new sound emerges, subtle at first but growing steadily in volume. It's a sound I know all too well, one that chills me to my core. The Wendigo's growl, low and menacing. My heart races, pounding against my chest as a wave of icy fear washes over me. I raise my head, straining my ears, unsure if what I'm hearing is real or just another trick of my tormented mind. The growl grows louder, more distinct, resonating through the cell's walls with an eerie clarity. It's as if the creature is right outside, its breath fogging the cold, unseen barrier that separates us. Panic sets in, my breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. The scratching intensifies, accompanied now by the Wendigo's growling, a symphony of terror that plays on the fringes of my consciousness. I press myself further against the wall, my eyes wide with terror, searching the darkness for any sign of the creature. The growl morphs into a series of low, haunting moans, a sound that speaks of hunger and malice. It's as if the Wendigo is calling out to me, a predator taunting its prey. The sound envelops the cell, filling the space with a sense of dread. In the deafening silence that follows, the reality of my situation becomes painfully clear. Whether the Wendigo is truly outside or just a manifestation of my fractured psyche, it doesn't matter. The creature has become a part of me, its wail a constant echo in the recesses of my mind. The scratching suddenly ceases, leaving behind a heavy silence. I sit motionless, holding my breath, waiting for something, anything. but there's only stillness. A quiet so profound it feels like a void. As I sit there, alone in the darkness of my cell, reality blurs. The Wendigo, whether real or imagined, is my eternal companion, a reminder of the night that changed everything. Its wail, though silent now, is a haunting melody that I fear will never leave me. A chilling lullaby that lingers in the shadows, always just out of sight.